Emma could barely breathe as the crystal champagne flute shattered against the marble floor, inches from where she stood. Emma froze, her modest gray dress suddenly feeling like a spotlight in a room full of silk and diamonds. The bridesmaids didn't even glance her way. They were too busy fussing over Vanessa's cathedral-length veil, adjusting it with the precision of surgeons performing a life-saving operation. "Watch where you're going," one of them hissed without looking up. Emma whispered an apology to no one in particular and stepped back, pressing herself against the wall of the hotel's grand ballroom. This was her sister's wedding day, the day she'd sacrificed 2 weeks of her life for, closing Sweet Ember, losing revenue she couldn't afford to lose, spending 14-hour days addressing invitations, assembling favors, taste testing with caterers, running last-minute errands. 2 weeks of hoping that maybe this time her effort would be seen, that maybe the sacrifice would finally bridge the gap between them. She was wrong. Remember to hit that subscribe button as you listen to this heartwarming story from Beyond the Line. The truth was, Emma had been invisible her entire life. While Vanessa grew up in their mother's spotlight, piano recitals, beauty pageants, college graduation photos displayed like trophies, Emma learned to live in the margins. She was the one who held coats at family gatherings, the one who baked cookies for Vanessa's college send-off party but wasn't included in the photos, the one whose college acceptance letter their mother read with a distracted, "That's nice, dear," before returning to Vanessa's latest modeling portfolio. Emma never fought for attention. She told herself it was easier that way, less painful. But somewhere deep inside, she'd held on to a fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, Vanessa's wedding would be different. Maybe being asked to help with preparations meant something. Maybe her sister had changed. The phone call had come 3 months ago. Vanessa, voice bright and urgent. "Emma, I need you. This wedding is overwhelming, and you're so organized. Could you help me? Please. I can't do this without you." Emma had said yes immediately. She'd rearranged her bakery schedule, hired temporary staff to cover her absence, and closed Sweet Ember for 2 full weeks, the longest she'd been away since opening. Her regulars had been disappointed. The loss of income had been significant. But family came first, right? Those 2 weeks had been exhausting. Emma had assembled 300 wedding favors by hand, each one a small box of imported almonds tied with silk ribbon. She'd spent hours at the printer ensuring the programs were perfect. She'd accompanied Vanessa to dress fittings, held her hand during cake tastings, coordinated with the florist when Vanessa had a meltdown about peonies versus roses. She'd been there for every crisis, every decision, every moment of stress. And through it all, Vanessa had seemed grateful. She'd thanked Emma, hugged her, told her she was a lifesaver. Emma had let herself believe that maybe this was healing, that maybe helping her sister would finally earn her a place in the family. But now, standing in this ballroom, watching bridesmaids glide past her like she was furniture, Emma felt that hope crumbling. "Emma!" Her mother's voice cut through the pre-ceremony chaos. Margaret Chen approached with a tight smile, her champagne-colored dress dripping with pearls. "You're here early." "I thought I could help." "Oh, everything's handled, sweetheart. The wedding planner has it all under control." Her mother's eyes scanned the room, barely settling on Emma's face. "You look nice, though I thought you were wearing blue." "This is what I showed you last month." Well?" Her mother patted her shoulder absently. "Make sure you find your seat before things start. We have a very specific aesthetic we're maintaining." Aesthetic. The word landed like a slap. Emma thought about the blisters on her hands from tying 300 silk ribbons, the bags under her eyes from staying up late to finish the seating chart, a seating chart that apparently didn't include proper placement for her, the revenue she'd lost closing her bakery for 2 weeks. Emma watched her mother float away toward Vanessa, who was holding court near the bridal suite entrance, her white dress catching the light like fresh snow. Emma took a step forward, thinking she might at least say hello to her sister, but a bridesmaid with a clipboard materialized in front of her. "Can I help you?" The woman's tone suggested Emma was a lost vendor. "I'm Emma, Vanessa's sister." The bridesmaid's expression flickered with something, recognition, pity, before settling back into professional neutrality. "Oh, right. Your seat is... Let me check." She flipped through papers on her clipboard with exaggerated care. "Yes, here. Follow me." Emma followed, clutching her small purse and the wrapped gift, a crystal cake stand that had belonged to their grandmother, the woman who'd actually made Emma feel valued when she was growing up. They walked past the rows of chairs draped in white fabric and flowers, past the seats near the aisle where families should sit, past the middle section, all the way to the back corner, behind a decorative column, behind a massive flower arrangement that blocked the view of the altar entirely. "This is my seat?" "Yes. You'll be very comfortable here." Emma stared at the single chair, isolated from the other rows, tucked away like something shameful. "I can't even see the ceremony from here." The bridesmaid's smile was plastic. "The photographer will capture everything. You'll see photos." "But I'm her sister." "Emma!" Vanessa's voice rang out, sharp and bright. Emma turned to see her sister approaching, her dress rustling like angry whispers. Even annoyed, Vanessa was stunning. Dark hair in perfect waves, makeup flawless, every inch the bride from a magazine cover. "What's the problem?" "I just... This seat is behind everything. I won't be able to see you walk down the aisle." Vanessa glanced at the column, then back at Emma, her expression hardening. "Emma, please. Today is already stressful enough. Can you just not make this about you? Just sit where you're assigned. You're honestly not part of the aesthetic we planned, and I need everything to look perfect for the photos." The words hung in the air like poison. Not part of the aesthetic. Emma felt her chest tighten, heat rushing to her face. She thought about the 14-hour days, the closed bakery, the lost income, the invitation assembly where she'd gotten paper cuts on every finger, the favor boxes she'd tied until her hands cramped. "I closed my bakery for 2 weeks to help you prepare for this wedding. And I appreciated that. I really did." Vanessa's voice dropped to a hiss. "But can you please just cooperate? For once? Just sit down and let me have my day without drama." Without drama, as if Emma had ever caused drama, as if showing up after sacrificing her business for 2 weeks and wanting to see her sister get married was dramatic. "Fine," Emma whispered. Vanessa's expression softened slightly, relief washing over her features. "Thank you. We'll catch up at the reception, okay? I promise." But Emma knew that promise was empty even as Vanessa said it. She watched her sister glide away, immediately brightening as other guests approached to compliment her dress. Emma sank into the isolated chair, tucking herself small, invisible. She set the wrapped gift on her lap and stared at the column in front of her. Guests filled the seats. Emma watched from her corner as her mother greeted people warmly, as cousins embraced, as Vanessa's friends laughed and took selfies. No one looked her way. No one came to say hello. No one mentioned the 2 weeks she'd spent helping make this day happen. It was as if she wasn't there at all. She was overflow seating for a family that had never had room for her. The ceremony started. Emma heard it more than saw it. The music, the officiant's voice, the collective sigh when Vanessa presumably appeared. Emma stood with everyone else, craning her neck around the column, catching only glimpses of white fabric in the distance. When the officiant said, "You may kiss the bride," Emma clapped along with everyone else, applauding a moment she hadn't actually witnessed. Then her phone buzzed. Unknown number. The message was simple. "Are you okay?" Emma looked up sharply, scanning the crowd, but everyone's attention was on the newly married couple parading down the aisle. She typed back quickly, "I'm fine." Wrong number. 3 dots appeared. Then, "I don't think it's the wrong number. You've been sitting alone behind that column for 20 minutes. Her heart started pounding. Someone was watching her. Someone had noticed. She looked around again, more carefully this time, but the crowd was dispersing toward the cocktail hour. She wrote back, "Who is this?" "Someone who thinks you deserve better than a hidden corner." Emma's hands trembled as she read the message. Before she could respond, she felt a presence beside her. She looked up to find a man standing there, tall and composed in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit. He had kind eyes and an expression that was both curious and gentle. "Hi," he said simply. "I'm Daniel." Emma blinked. "Do I know you?" "No, but I know your bakery." He smiled, and something about it felt genuine in a way nothing had felt all day. "Sweet Ember, right? On 5th Street? You make those incredible lemon lavender croissants." Emma's mind spun. Her small bakery, The one she'd poured her savings into 2 years ago. The one that barely kept her afloat. The one she'd closed for 2 weeks to help Vanessa. You've been there? Every Tuesday for the past 18 months. Actually, my assistant Patricia and I have been going through withdrawal these past couple weeks. His smile turned slightly rueful. Patricia even tried calling to place an order for our board meeting last week. We use your pastries for all our important meetings. When the bakery was closed, she nearly staged a revolt. Emma felt something crack open in her chest. Someone had noticed. Someone had missed her work. I closed it to help with wedding preparations. For my sister. Daniel's expression shifted, understanding settling in his features. 2 weeks? You closed your business for 2 weeks to help with this wedding? She nodded, not trusting her voice. And they put you here? Behind a column where you can't even see the ceremony? His voice was quiet, but there was steel underneath. That's not just thoughtless. That's cruel. He didn't wait for permission to pull over another chair, angling it so they faced each other instead of the room. It was such a simple gesture, but it made Emma feel less like furniture and more like a person someone chose to spend time with. You're Vanessa's sister, aren't you? Daniel asked, settling into the chair with an ease that suggested he was comfortable anywhere. Emma nodded. I'm a college friend of Marcus, the groom. Got the invitation a month ago. He glanced at the bustling cocktail hour beyond their hidden corner. But I have to ask, why are you sitting back here? Shouldn't the sister of the bride be up front, especially the sister who sacrificed 2 weeks of her business to make this wedding happen? The question, asked so directly but without judgment, cracked something in Emma. You'd think so. Daniel's expression shifted, understanding settling in his features. They put you here on purpose. It wasn't a question. Emma felt tears threatening and blinked them back hard. My sister said I wasn't part of the aesthetic. The words sounded even more absurd spoken aloud. Daniel's jaw tightened slightly, a flash of anger crossing his face before he controlled it. I'm sorry. That's incredibly cruel, especially after you closed your bakery to help her. It's fine. It's not fine. He leaned forward slightly. Emma, I've been buying pastries from your bakery for a year and a half. Every Tuesday without fail. Do you know why? She shook her head. Because your croissants are perfect. Not almost perfect. Perfect. The lamination, the flavor balance, the texture, it's masterful. I've eaten pastries in Paris, Tokyo, New York. Yours are better. He held her gaze. Patricia, my assistant, literally tried to bribe your neighbors for information when Sweet Ember was closed. She was convinced something terrible had happened. We both were, actually. Someone with that level of skill, that dedication to her craft, doesn't just close without reason. He paused. And the reason was helping your sister. Helping the sister who then hid you behind a column at her wedding. Emma felt something shift in her chest, like a door opening to let light into a room that had been dark for years. Why are you telling me this? Because I don't think anyone else has. Daniel smiled again, softer this time. And because I actually came here today hoping to talk to you. To me? I'm Daniel Archer. I run Archer Group. We invest in small businesses with exceptional potential. He paused. I've been working up the courage to approach you for months about expanding Sweet Ember. Patricia has been pressuring me weekly, threatening to quit and work for you instead if I don't make it happen. But you're always so focused when you're working, and I didn't want to interrupt. Then I got this wedding invitation and saw your name as the sister of the bride, and I thought maybe fate was giving me an opportunity. His expression darkened slightly, though I didn't expect to find you hidden away after sacrificing your business to help. Emma stared at him. Daniel Archer. Even in her limited business knowledge, she knew that name. Archer Group was massive. Their investments turned small companies into empires. You want to invest in my bakery? I want to help you build an empire, he corrected. If you're interested, your work deserves to be celebrated, not sacrificed for people who don't appreciate it. But first, he stood and extended his hand. Let's get you out of this corner. The reception's starting, and I'd like to introduce you to some people who actually deserve to meet you. Emma looked at his outstretched hand, Every instinct told her to stay small, stay quiet, don't make waves. But something about Daniel's steady presence, his genuine interest in her work, his anger on her behalf, it made her feel brave. And the thought of the 2 weeks she'd lost, the revenue she'd sacrificed, the blisters and exhaustion and hope that had meant nothing, it made her furious. She took his hand and stood. The reception was in full swing when they emerged from the hidden corner. Emma felt exposed, walking beside Daniel through the crowd, but he stayed close, his presence a shield against the curious stares. They found a table, and Daniel pulled out her chair before sitting beside her. "There you are." Her mother appeared, champagne in hand, her smile strained. "Emma, you disappeared. And who's your friend?" "Daniel Archer," he said, standing to shake her hand with impeccable politeness. "Friend of the groom, and Emma's future business partner, if she'll have me." Margaret's eyes widened, recognition flickering. Emma watched her mother's entire demeanor shift, recalibrating. "Business partner? Emma, you didn't mention—" "We're still discussing terms," Daniel said smoothly. "But your daughter has remarkable talent. She closed her bakery for 2 weeks to help make this wedding perfect. That's the kind of dedication and sacrifice that shows true character. You must be very proud." The lie hung between them, obvious to Emma, probably obvious to Daniel. Margaret's smile became brittle. "Of course. So proud. Emma's always been so independent." "Emma!" Vanessa's voice cut through the moment. She approached the table with her new husband Marcus in tow, her expression tight. "There you are. I was wondering where you'd gone." Emma doubted that sincerely, given the 2 weeks she'd already been present and invisible. "Daniel," Marcus said warmly, clapping his friend on the shoulder. "Glad you could make it, man. I see you've met my new sister-in-law." "Actually, I've been a customer of hers for over a year," Daniel said. "Emma runs Sweet Ember Bakery, best pastries in the city. Patricia and I have been in withdrawal for 2 weeks while it was closed." Vanessa's smile looked painted on. "Yes, Emma was helping me with the wedding. Her little baking hobby." "It's not a hobby," Daniel said, his tone remaining pleasant but firm. "It's a business, a very successful one that closed for 2 weeks, losing significant revenue, to help make your wedding perfect, and one that's about to get significantly bigger." Something dangerous flashed in Vanessa's eyes. She looked between Emma and Daniel, and Emma recognized that expression. It was the same look Vanessa had worn when Emma got accepted to college, when Emma won a baking competition in culinary school. Anytime Emma achieved something without Vanessa's permission or oversight. "Emma, can I talk to you for a moment?" Vanessa's voice was sugar-sweet. "Privately?" Emma's instinct was to comply, to follow, to smooth things over. But she felt Daniel's presence beside her, steady and sure, and thought about the 2 weeks she'd lost, the closed bakery, the empty chair behind the column. She found herself saying, "Anything you need to say, you can say here." Vanessa's smile cracked. "Fine. Marcus, honey, why don't you make sure the DJ has our song ready?" She waited until her husband had walked away before turning to Emma. "What exactly are you doing?" "I'm attending my sister's wedding." "No, you're making a scene. You were supposed to stay in your seat." "The seat behind a column where I couldn't see anything? After I spent 2 weeks preparing for this wedding?" "Oh, don't be dramatic." Vanessa waved her hand dismissively. "You know how wedding photos work. We needed specific optics. I couldn't have you in the family photos looking like that." "Like what, exactly?" Daniel's voice had gone cold. Vanessa finally looked at him directly, really seeing him for the first time. "I'm sorry, but this is a family matter." "Then maybe you should treat Emma like family instead of an inconvenience. She closed her business for you. Do you have any idea what that costs? Not just financially, but professionally? She has regular customers who depend on her, a reputation she's built, and she risked all of that to help you." The table had gone silent. Other guests nearby had started to notice the tension, conversations dropping away. Emma's mother looked mortified, her face pale. Vanessa's expression shifted through several emotions: shock, anger, humiliation, before settling on something ugly. "You have no idea what you're talking about," Vanessa hissed. "You don't know our family. You don't know Emma. She's always been like this, making everything difficult, playing the victim." I'm right here, Vanessa. Emma's voice came out stronger than she expected. I'm sitting right here, and I can hear you. Good. Maybe you'll finally hear the truth. Vanessa's composure was crumbling, her perfect bride facade cracking. Do you know how exhausting it is having a sister who makes everything about her? This is my wedding day, mine, and somehow you've managed to make it about poor, pitiful Emma sitting in the corner. You put me there! Emma stood, her chair scraping back. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried. I closed my business for 2 weeks. 2 weeks of lost income I can't get back. I addressed your invitations until I had paper cuts on every finger. I assembled 300 favors by hand. I held your dress for fittings. I calmed you down during every crisis. I did everything you asked. And you thanked me by hiding me away because I didn't fit your aesthetic. Because you never tried, Vanessa shot back. You never cared about how you looked or what people thought. You were always in the kitchen, covered in flour, acting like your little baking obsession was more important than family. I'm a chef. I own a business. It's not an obsession. It's my career. And maybe if anyone in this family had ever shown up for me, to my culinary school graduation, to my bakery opening, to anything, you'd know that. Emma's voice shook, but she didn't stop. But no one ever came, because the only person who matters in this family is you. And I still showed up. I still closed my bakery and sacrificed 2 weeks of my life because you said you needed me. Because I thought maybe finally I mattered to you. Margaret stood. Emma, that's not fair. Isn't it? Emma turned to her mother. When's the last time you visited my bakery, Mom? When's the last time you asked about my life without immediately changing the subject to Vanessa? Her mother's mouth opened and closed, no words coming out. That's what I thought. Emma looked back at Vanessa, who was trembling with rage. I'm sorry your wedding wasn't perfect, but I'm done apologizing for existing. I'm done being invisible, and I'm definitely done sacrificing my business and my life for people who don't value either. She grabbed her purse. Daniel stood immediately, his hand finding her elbow gently, a silent question. Emma nodded, and together they walked toward the exit. Behind them, Emma heard her mother calling her name, heard the whispers spreading through the reception hall, heard Vanessa's sharp voice demanding someone do something. But Emma didn't stop. She walked out of that ballroom with her head up, and for the first time in her life, she didn't look back. Outside in the hotel parking lot, Emma finally stopped, her hands shaking. I need to get my car, she said, her voice unsteady. I drove here. 6 hours. Daniel's expression was gentle. Where are you parked? Other side of the lot. Can I drive you there? Make sure you're okay? When she hesitated, he added, You've been through a lot today. If you're not up for driving 6 hours right now, I can drive you home and arrange to have your car delivered tomorrow. Or I can follow you home to make sure you get there safely. Whatever you need. Emma looked at him. This man who'd noticed her closed bakery, who'd defended her to her family, who was offering help without demanding anything in return. I don't think I can drive right now. My hands won't stop shaking. Then let's get you home. I'll have your car delivered first thing tomorrow morning, fully detailed and with a full tank of gas. He smiled softly. Consider it a thank you for all the Tuesday croissants that got me through terrible meetings. They drove in silence, Daniel seeming to understand she needed quiet more than conversation. When he pulled up outside her small apartment above the bakery, he turned to her with that same gentle expression. I meant what I said in there, he told her, about the business opportunity. But I want you to know it's real. It's not pity. It's not because of what happened today. I've had a full business proposal, drafted for 2 months. Patricia has been eating your raspberry tarts and threatening to steal you away herself. Despite everything, Emma laughed. It came out watery and broken, but real. Why didn't you just come into the bakery and ask? Because you're intimidating when you're working, he said with a small smile. You have this focus, this precision. I didn't want to interrupt that, but maybe... He pulled out a business card and handed it to her. Maybe we could have lunch this week? Talk about Sweet Ember's future? No pressure, but I think you're capable of extraordinary things, Emma. I'd like to help you prove it. Emma took the card, running her thumb over the embossed letters. Thank you. For today. For everything. You don't need to thank me. You stood up for yourself. That was all you. She went inside and cried for an hour, letting out years of feeling less than, of being overlooked, of trying so hard to be good enough for people who would never see her. Then she washed her face, made herself tea, and read through the 17 texts that had come in. 3 from her mother begging her to come back and apologize, 14 from Vanessa calling her selfish and cruel, and a dozen other things. Emma blocked them both. Then she looked at Daniel's card and allowed herself to imagine a future where Sweet Ember wasn't just survival, but success. The next morning, her car appeared in front of the bakery, professionally detailed and with a full tank of gas, just as Daniel had promised. There was a note on the dashboard. Patricia wants to know if you're taking custom orders for board meetings. She said she'll pay whatever you ask. Daniel, Emma smiled and called him. That call turned into lunch, that turned into a business meeting, that turned into paperwork, that turned into the most terrifying and exhilarating 6 months of her life. Daniel's proposal wasn't just investment, it was a complete business overhaul. He connected her with commercial real estate agents, helped her hire a skilled team, brought in marketing experts who understood her vision. Sweet Ember expanded to 3 locations within 4 months. The article started small, local food blogs celebrating the neighborhood bakery gone citywide, but grew into features in national magazines. Emma's face appeared on the cover of Entrepreneur's 30 Under 30 to Watch issue. Her Instagram following exploded. The waiting list for her weekend baking classes stretched into next year. And through it all, Daniel was there. Not hovering, not taking over, but supporting. He showed up for the second bakery's opening with flowers and Patricia in tow, a woman who immediately announced that the lemon lavender croissants had changed her life, and she'd physically fight anyone who tried to steal the recipe. He sat in on investor meetings, quietly letting Emma lead while offering insights when asked. He celebrated every win and strategized every challenge. You know, Patricia said one afternoon, cornering Emma in the flagship bakery's kitchen, I've worked for Daniel for 15 years. I've never seen him this invested in a project. Emma looked up from the batch of sourdough she was shaping. He's very thorough. Honey, Patricia leaned against the counter with a knowing smile. That man shows up every Tuesday morning to buy pastries personally when he could send literally anyone on his staff. He has your baking schedule memorized. He rearranged 3 international business trips to be here for your expansion meetings. He personally arranged for your car to be detailed and delivered after your sister's wedding disaster. That's not being thorough. That's being smitten. Emma felt heat rise to her face. We're business partners. Mm-hmm. And I'm the Queen of England. Patricia grabbed a still-warm cookie from the cooling rack. I'm just saying, some men show interest by sending flowers. Daniel Archer shows interest by helping you build an empire. Just maybe consider that. Emma did consider it. She considered it during the staff meetings where Daniel's attention lingered on her a beat too long. She considered it during the late-night phone calls about branding strategy that somehow turned into conversations about everything else. She considered it the day Sweet Ember's 4th location opened, and Daniel showed up with a bottle of champagne and a smile that made her heart skip. This is incredible, he said, looking around the new space. Industrial chic design with warm lighting and the signature Sweet Ember logo in brushed gold. Emma, you've built something amazing. We built it, she corrected. I couldn't have done this without you. You absolutely could have. You just didn't have the resources yet. He turned to face her fully. But I'm glad I could help. I'm glad I got to be part of this. Me too. Emma's voice was soft. They stood close in the empty bakery, the rest of the staff having left after the private opening. Daniel, I need to ask you something. Anything. Why me? Really? You could invest in anyone. Partner with established brands. Why take a chance on a struggling bakery whose owner closed for 2 weeks to help her ungrateful sister? He was quiet for a moment, considering. The first time I came into Sweet Ember, it was pouring rain. I just had the worst meeting of my career. A deal fell through, cost me millions, and I was furious. I ducked into your bakery to get out of the rain, and you were there, completely focused on decorating this elaborate wedding cake. You didn't even look up when the bell rang. You just said, I'll be with you in one moment. I need to get this rose petal exactly right. Emma remembered that day, the Martinez wedding cake. She'd been terrified of messing up the sugar flowers. You worked for another 5 minutes while I stood there dripping on your floor, and when you finally looked up, you apologized, but your hands were shaking. You said, "I'm sorry for making you wait, but I promised this bride the most beautiful cake I could make, and I can't give her less than my best." Daniel smiled at the memory. Then you handed me a croissant and said it was on the house for my patience. That croissant was perfect. The cake was extraordinary. And I thought, here's someone who cares about her work more than she cares about impressing a soaking wet stranger. That's rare. That's valuable. That's someone who closes her bakery for 2 weeks because family asked, even when they don't deserve it. I made you wait in a puddle. You made something beautiful despite having every reason to rush. He stepped closer. Emma, you're brilliant and dedicated, and you see people. You remembered my usual order after 2 visits. You wrote, "Have a great Tuesday" on Patricia's bag every week. You helped that elderly customer practice reading your menu when you thought no one was watching. You're the kind of person who builds things that matter. That's why I wanted to partner with you. That's why I... He stopped, something flickering in his expression. That's why I think you're remarkable. The air between them felt charged. Emma's heart was pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. I think you're remarkable too. His smile was slow and genuine. Yeah? Yeah. She took a breath. Daniel, is this just business? Not for me. His voice was careful, honest. Not for a long time. But I didn't want to complicate things while we were building Sweet Ember. I didn't want you to feel pressured or like my investment came with expectations. Emma kissed him. It was impulsive and probably a terrible business decision, but she'd spent too many years being careful, being small, worrying about everyone else's comfort. Daniel made a surprise sound that turned into something warm and pleased, his hands coming up to cup her face gently. The kiss was soft and sweet and tasted like possibility. When they pulled apart, both slightly breathless, Daniel laughed. I've been planning the perfect moment to tell you how I felt for 3 months. How's this moment? Better than anything I imagined. They stood there in the empty bakery, wrapped in each other's arms, and Emma thought about the girl who'd sat behind a column at her sister's wedding. That girl had felt invisible, worthless, like she'd never be enough. This woman, standing in her fourth bakery, kissed by a man who saw her, really saw her, felt powerful. The success grew. Sweet Ember became a regional phenomenon. Emma appeared on morning shows demonstrating techniques, wrote a cookbook that became a bestseller, developed a line of specialty flowers that sold out within hours. The girl who wasn't part of the aesthetic became the aesthetic. Glossy magazine spreads, profile pieces, features in business journals about young entrepreneurs changing the food industry. And through it all, her phone stayed silent. Emma had blocked her mother and sister after the wedding, needing space to build her life without their voices telling her she wasn't enough. But she saw the evidence of them watching. Vanessa's friends requesting follows on Instagram, her mother's name appearing in the list of people who'd viewed her business profile. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens next. We're just getting to the best part. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday. Cream cardstock, elegant font, requesting Emma's presence at an award ceremony where Sweet Ember would receive the Rising Star Award for Innovative Small Businesses. Emma stared at the +1 line and called Daniel immediately. Of course I'll go, he said warmly. Wouldn't miss it. The ceremony was downtown at a historic hotel ballroom. Emma wore a midnight blue dress that actually fit the aesthetic. Elegant, confident, expensive. Daniel appeared at her door in a sharp tuxedo, and the look on his face made her feel like the most beautiful woman in the world. Ready? He asked, offering his arm. Ready. The ballroom was spectacular. Chandeliers, pressed linens, hundreds of people from the business community. Emma recognized faces from magazines, CEOs of major corporations, local celebrities. She felt that old instinct to make herself small, but Daniel's steady presence beside her kept her grounded. They found their table, made small talk with other award recipients, and Emma was just starting to relax when she heard a familiar voice. Emma? She turned to find her mother standing there, looking older somehow, tired in a way that had nothing to do with age. Margaret Chen wore an expensive dress and perfect makeup, but her eyes were uncertain. Mom, Emma's voice was neutral. What are you doing here? I saw the announcement about your award. I wanted to come support you. Margaret's hands twisted around her clutch. Is that okay? Before Emma could answer, Vanessa appeared beside their mother, and Emma's stomach dropped. Her sister looked different, still beautiful, but strained. There were shadows under her eyes that concealer didn't quite hide, and her smile didn't reach her eyes. Hi, Emma, Vanessa said quietly. Daniel's hand found Emma's under the table, squeezing gently. Emma took a breath. What do you both want? Can we talk? Margaret asked. Please, just for a moment? Emma looked at Daniel, who gave her an encouraging nod. I'll be right here, he murmured. She stood and followed her mother and sister to a quieter corner of the ballroom. They stood in awkward silence for a moment before Margaret spoke. I owe you an apology, her mother said, and her voice cracked. A massive one. For years of not seeing you, not valuing you. I was so focused on Vanessa because she was struggling. She was struggling? Emma couldn't keep the disbelief from her voice. In different ways, Vanessa said softly. Ways I hid. I was drowning in debt, terrible at everything I tried, desperate to seem perfect because it was the only thing I thought I had. And Mom enabled it because, she looked at Margaret, because she was trying to help. I was trying to help, Margaret agreed, tears streaming down her face. But I didn't realize I was hurting you in the process. Emma, you were always so capable, so independent. You never seemed to need me the way Vanessa did. You closed your bakery for 2 weeks to help with the wedding without complaint. You handled everything so well, so I told myself you were fine, but you weren't fine. You were handling everything alone. Emma felt her own tears threatening. I needed you too. I needed someone to show up, to care. I know, Margaret's voice broke completely. And I didn't. I chose comfort over courage. I chose not making waves over standing up for you. And when Vanessa told me about the wedding seating, I should have stopped it. I should have said no. But I didn't want to upset her on her big day, and I told myself it wasn't that bad. That you'd understand? She covered her face with her hands. There's no excuse. I was wrong. I was a terrible mother to you. Vanessa stepped forward, and Emma saw that she was crying too. I was jealous of you, she said. My entire life I was jealous. You were smart and talented, and you knew who you were. I had no idea who I was except pretty and popular, and I was terrified that without those things I'd be nothing. So I made sure you stayed small because it made me feel bigger. And the wedding, she swallowed hard. You gave up 2 weeks of your life to help me, 2 weeks of income you couldn't afford to lose, and I knew what I was doing when I put you in that corner. I wanted you hidden because I was afraid you'd somehow overshadow me, even though it was my wedding. How messed up is that? Pretty messed up, Emma said, her voice shaking. I know, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Vanessa wiped her eyes. Marcus left me. Emma blinked. What? 3 months ago. Turns out building a marriage on image instead of substance doesn't work. Vanessa's laugh was bitter. He said I cared more about looking perfect than being real. He wasn't wrong. And watching your success, seeing you build something genuine with someone who actually values you, she gestured toward where Daniel waited at their table. It made me realize everything I've lost by being who I've been. Emma didn't know what to say. Part of her wanted to feel vindicated, triumphant, but mostly she just felt sad for the years wasted, for the sister she'd never really known, for the mother who'd let fear guide her choices. I don't know if I can forgive you, Emma said finally. Not right now. Maybe not for a long time. I understand, Margaret whispered. But I'm willing to try, Emma continued. Eventually, if you're actually willing to change, to see me, to show up. Yes, her mother said immediately. Yes, I promise. Don't promise, Emma interrupted. Just do it. Come to my bakery, not for a photo opportunity or when it's convenient. Actually come, meet my staff, see what I've built. I will, Margaret said. This week. I'll come this week. Emma looked at Vanessa. And you? I need to work on myself first, Vanessa said honestly. I'm in therapy, trying to figure out who I am without the performance. But I'd like to be your sister someday. Your actual sister, if you'll let me. Maybe, Emma said. It was the most she could offer. Someday. They stood there. Three women who'd spent years hurting each other and themselves. And Emma felt something shift. Not forgiveness. That would take time, work, proof of change, but possibility. The door wasn't open, but it was no longer locked. I need to get back, Emma said. They're announcing the awards soon. Of course. Margaret reached out like she might hug Emma, then thought better of it. I'm proud of you. I know I should have said it years ago, but I'm so proud of who you've become. Emma nodded, unable to speak, and walked back to Daniel. He stood immediately, searching her face, and she gave him a small smile that said she was okay. They sat together as the ceremony began, his hand finding hers again, steady and sure. When they called Emma's name for the Rising Star Award, Daniel squeezed her hand once before letting go. Emma walked to the stage, accepted the crystal trophy, and looked out at the audience. She found Daniel's face immediately. He was beaming, clearly proud. Then she found her mother and sister, both clapping, both crying, both watching her shine. Thank you, Emma said into the microphone. Her voice didn't shake. This award means everything to me, not just because it represents Sweet Ember's success, but because it represents what's possible when someone believes in you. When someone sees your potential and helps you build it into reality. She looked at Daniel. When someone takes your hand and walks beside you instead of ahead of you. That's the real award. The rest is just proof that we got there. The applause was thunderous. Emma walked off the stage with her trophy and back to Daniel, who pulled her into a hug that felt like home. I'm so proud of you, he murmured against her hair. I'm proud of me too, Emma said, and meant it. They left the ceremony early, ducking out while people were still networking, stealing away to Emma's flagship bakery. She used her key to let them in, and they sat in the kitchen eating leftover cake and drinking champagne straight from the bottle. You know what's wild, Emma said, her head resting on Daniel's shoulder. A year ago, I was sitting behind a column at my sister's wedding, invisible and alone. I'd sacrificed 2 weeks of my business to help her, and she hid me away like I was shameful. Now I'm here, running a successful business, winning awards, with you. You were never invisible, Daniel said. You were just surrounded by people who couldn't see. But the right people? We saw you the whole time. We were just waiting for you to let us in. Emma tilted her head to look at him. I love you. She hadn't planned to say it. The words just arrived, true and certain. Daniel's expression softened into something so tender it made her chest ache. I love you too. I've loved you since that rainy Tuesday when you made me wait for a perfect rose petal. They kissed in the empty bakery, surrounded by the smell of bread and sugar and possibility. Emma thought about the girl she'd been, afraid, small, desperate for scraps of approval from people who'd never give it. That girl was gone. In her place was a woman who knew her worth, who built empires from flour and butter, who loved and was loved by someone who saw her clearly. Emma Chen was no longer overflow seating in her own life. She was the main event, and she wasn't apologizing for taking up space ever again. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. If this story touched you in any way, go ahead and tap that subscribe button. It lets me know you want more. And before you head out, drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. I love seeing our little community growing from all corners of the world. Take care, and I can't wait to share the next story with you.